So does anybody else plan their TBRs a week in advance? No? Just me? I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem, and these are the books that I'm going to be reading in February 2025. Everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, now also booktuber. You can find my music in the Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the newly released psychological horror film, Dead Whisper. So, I'm very excited to do this kind of video because I always love to see other people's TBRs. I love making my own, sometimes a little too much in advance to be quite honest with you, but I really love kind of sharing what I'm going to be reading a little bit earlier because I found, when I share it on the Discord, or, I kind of put a post on the FABLE app or anything like that, or I share it here, oftentimes people are like, hey, I'd love to join you for that read along. And now I figure if I give it enough time, people can purchase the books at their, medium of choice, their place of choice, and can follow along, read along. And that's what this is all about, right? Is creating a community where we can all read books together and enjoy together. So with that said, if you like this kind of video, please like and subscribe. Always helps out the channel. And now on to the books. So the first book should come as no surprise because, as I mentioned to you, we have been doing a Malazan Book of the Fallen read-along of the 10 very big books. We have a kind of a schedule and everything like that in our read-along schedule, which I'm linking down below as well in case you want to join. Not too late to join, of course, because we are on, in January, the first book, Gardens of the Moon. So we will be starting Book 2, Dead House Gates. Now, I read Dead House Gates a few years ago during Mike's Malazan Book of the Fallen read-along, that I kind of stopped after book 2, but I really enjoyed it. I remember, everything I remember about it, I really enjoyed, but I also felt there's a huge disconnect between the two sets of characters that are introduced in Gardens of the Moon versus Dead House Gates. It almost feels like an anthology series in that they're not necessarily related, but they're all part of this broader universe. So I'm going to pull up a description here, which will be spoiler free because A, there's no context to these different characters, and B, this is the first time you're seeing them, so the story is completely unique from Gardens of the Moon. So, gonna read that here for you. In the vast dominion of 7 cities, in the holy desert Raraku, the seer Sheikh and her followers prepare for the long-prophesied uprising known as the Whirlwind. Unprecedented in size and savagery, this maelstrom of fanaticism and bloodlust will embroil the Malazan Empire in one of the bloodiest conflicts it has ever known, shaping destinies and giving birth to legends. Now, everything I remember about this book is that it's pretty grim, it's pretty dark. Now, Steven Erikson definitely shies away from calling his series grimdark because there is an element of hope and compassion in it throughout from what I've heard. Having said that, this is a pretty heavy book, so just letting you all know that right at the outset. But I remember liking this one even more than Gardens of the Moon. I have loved Gardens of the Moon even more on this reread than I had loved it previously. So I'm excited to see how Dead House Gates stacks up. Will you be joining us for this one? I know a lot of people have been on the read along. We have a bunch of people on the Discord discussing it right now. We have about 40 something people on the FABLE app that are all part of that read along and are discussing it chapter by chapter. So you can do a chapter by chapter discussion there if you want, or you can have more of a broader discussion on the Discord. So that's kind of how I'm formatting things. So please feel free to join us, more the merrier. It is completely, open to all. And if you are behind, if you want to start book 1, there's plenty of time to catch up. We're going to be having breaks, as you'll see in that schedule down below, where you can have little spaced months to catch up on anything you've fallen behind of. And those discussions will be available all month, so you can go check those out as well. So maybe I might even leave some of those discussions available for a couple months or something so that people can catch up. That's what I'm thinking about. But let me know in the comments how you'd prefer it formatted. So that's the first book in February. And it's a chunker, so I'm gonna have my work cut out for me, I think. Pulling up the second one here. Now, so the second one is part of our soft read along series. So we have one kind of official channel read along, which is Malazan Book of the Fallen, and we have 3 soft read alongs on the channel because a lot of people wanted to read those other series as well. And so, hey, you ask, I will provide. And I will read along with you all on every single one of these because I'm excited to check these out as well. It's kind of why I chose them as options in the first place. So this one is book 2 of the Matthew Corbett series about a private investigator who has a keen eye. It's kind of almost Sherlock Holmesian in his observant abilities to kind of solve mysteries and things like that. The first book took place in 1699 in kind of a town called Fount Royal, which Matthew Corbett is working as a clerk for a magistrate. There's a woman accused of a witch, but Matthew Corbett is not quite convinced that she's completely guilty. So that's the mystery solving that, surrounding that book. This one is different. And again, non-spoiler because they're not related stories. So I'm going to read that description here for you. So this one is called The Queen of Bedlam. The unsolved murder of a respected doctor has sent ripples of fear throughout a city teeming with life and noise and commerce. Who snuffed out the good man's life with the slash of a blade on a midnight street? The local printmaster has labeled the fiend the Masker, adding fuel to a volatile mystery. And when the masker claims a new victim, hardworking young law clerk Matthew Corbett is lured into a maze of forensic clues and heart-pounding investigation that will both test his natural penchant for detection and inflame his hunger for justice. In the strangest twist of all, the key to unmasking the masker may await in an asylum where the Queen of Bedlam reigns, and only a man of Matthew's reason and empathy can unlock her secrets. From the seaport to Wall Street, from society mansions to gutters glimmering with blood spilled by a deviant, Matthew's quest will tauntingly reveal the answers he seeks and the chilling truths he cannot escape. Very vague and yet tells us a lot, because if you've read the first book, there's certain threads that seem to be kind of very loosely tied to this one. I'm not going to say what it is, don't want to spoil anything in case you haven't read it yet, but the first book has been wonderful. It's been one of my favorite reads in January, so I'm really looking forward to seeing The Queen of Bedlam, and it is actually 200 pages shorter, so it'll be kind of nice to read something just slightly shorter than the behemoth that was Speaks the Nightbird, book 1. So I'm excited. Let me know if you're joining in on that one. Very excited to read that one. Now, the third book is by an author named Ryan Cahill. So he has done a series called The Bound and the Broken. Very unique in its approach because A, it's a dragon rider fantasy that is independently written, and B, it seems that he intersperses each book with novellas that are actually very important to the story, so you don't want to skip anything. You want to read in publication order. So we read The Fall, which was the first novella and kind of the intro to the whole story. What a rip-roaring good time. I mean, I really had a good time with that novella. I felt like it was really well paced. I felt like it was action-packed from the beginning. It was almost popcorn fantasy in a way, like in the sense that it's very action-packed and fast-paced and kept my attention throughout. I'm excited to see what Of Blood and Fire, book 1 of this series, kind of takes place, I think, a few hundred years or sometime after the events of The Fall. I can't quite remember when. But it's got, from what I understand, mixed reviews in the sense that some people love it. It's a little bit more tropey. Some people say the series takes a little bit of time to get going. I'm interested to see how I feel about it. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed The Fall that had joined us on that soft read along. So again, it's a quick read. So if you are behind or if you always wanted to check out this series, please check it out with us. We're all here and excited to support you on your reading journey as well. So that's kind of what we're thinking about doing. So I'm going to read the Of Blood and Fire description here for you so you could check this out as well if you want to. Born in fire, tempered in blood, Etheria is a land divided by war and mistrust. The high lords of the south squabble and fight, only kept in check by the Dragon Guard, traitors of a time long past, who served the empire of the north. In the remote villages of southern Etheria, still reeling from the tragic loss of his brother, Caelan Briar prepares for the proving, a test of courage and skill that not all survive. But when 3 strangers arrive in the village of Milltown with a secret they are willing to die for, Caelan's world is ripped from under him, and he is thrust headfirst into a war that has been raging for centuries. There is no prophecy. His coming was not foretold. He bleeds like any man, and bleed he will. So I gotta say, there's a couple things I really like about this. I read The Wheel of Time years ago, and it kind of was my gateway to fantasy. You know, it was kind of a love letter to fantasy that really made me fall in love with the genre, and kind of got me my job working on the show, actually, indirectly. And this kind of reminds me of that in the sense that there's the three strangers that are kind of, possibly there's a chosen one kind of a feel, but it does emphasize there is no prophecy. That is interesting to me because that leaves it open to more fallible characters, I think. That not everything is preordained, because sometimes that gets to be like you kind of know where it's going to end, right? And the journey, of course, is more important than than the destination itself. But I'm interested to see how that little slant kind of changes things in terms of the story. And of course, I love the fall, so I'm excited to see what this is all about. Let me know if you're joining in on this read along. I'd be interested to see if you want to join in as well. So that is the next book that I'm going to be reading. Now, I guess, how many have I said so far? I'm trying to remember. I think I've said 3. Okay, so I got 3 more here for you. One is a maybe, but I'm going to get to that one at the end. So the 4th book that I'm going to be reading is actually not part of these read-alongs, but it is a buddy read with 2 of my dear friends on Booktube. One is John from Disquiet and Dragons, who I'm linking down below. Fantastic channel, fantastic human being. And we are going to be continuing down the train with Ellie from Bibbidi Bobbidi Books, who I'm also linking below. And we are going to be reading the next trilogy in the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. This is called the Live Ships Traders trilogy. Now, a lot of people tout this as being the high point of the series of the 16-book epic magnum opus that Robin Hobb has written. We had read the Farseer trilogy, and we read the last book, all 3 of us together. John and I had read the 2nd book together, and we really love that trilogy. We've heard that is one of the lower points of the series, so if it's up from here, very excited to see how things kind of move forward. And this is also not quite related to the same characters, different part of the world, so I'm going to read that description here for you as well for Ship of Magic, Book 1 of the Live Ship Traders series. So, it says, Bingtown is a hub of exotic trade and home to a merchant nobility famed for its live ships, rare vessels carved from wizard wood, which ripens magically into sentient awareness. The fortunes of one of Bingtown's oldest families rest on the newly awakened live ship Vivacia. For Althea Vestrit, the ship is her rightful legacy unjustly denied her, a legacy she will risk anything to reclaim. For Althea's young nephew Wintro, wrenched from his religious studies and forced to serve aboard ship, Vivacia is a life sentence. But the fate of the Vestrit family and the ship may ultimately lie in the hands of an outsider. The ruthless pirate Kenneth seeks a way to seize power over all the denizens of the Pirate Isles, and the first step of his plan requires him to capture his own live ship and bend it to its will. So, really interesting to me. I mean, I've heard that the magic system in this one is very unique, and the ships, I don't want to give anything away, but something about the ships is also very unique in the series. And like I said, a lot of people say the characters are some of the favorite that Robin Hobb has ever written. So I'm excited to see how we feel about it. And, we've been in a fantasy frenzy, so definitely looking forward to kind of continuing on that train with this particular book. So going to be reading this, and let me know if you've read The Live Ship Traders, or, if you've always wanted to read it and stuff like that. Curious to hear what you think about it, but we're very excited about this one. Now, the 5th book, not going to talk too much about this one because it is actually pretty steeped in pop culture, and it is the smallest book on the list, and it is one I'm reading just for me. It is George Orwell's 1984. Yes, I think it's high time I finally read the book that has influenced so many books, that has been prescient for its time. It was prescient when it came out. It is prescient even for this time. And, you see, because it has, from what I've heard, a keen insight into human nature and kind of how people can act in certain situations that feels like it could be timeless, right? Big Brother is always watching, right? The idea of the shadow government that is able to kind of infiltrate into people's lives. I'm interested to see how this book measures up today, because I always find it very fascinating when there are books that are written from, years and decades ago, and somehow they capture a language, a vernacular, or a character arc, or something that feels like, hey, this could have been written anytime. I felt that very similarly with, what was that book? It was Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End. That was a similar thing. It was written 60, 70 years ago, and it is prescient for the times. It's still that idea of like humanity can be saved from itself, but by what cost? And this kind of answers a very different question. So a book that makes you think, something that is a little bit smaller, balance out these chunky tomes that I have going for me. So I'm really like looking forward to that one as well. And then the final book on the series, not going to give too much on this one because it is part of a series. I don't want to, it's a continuation story from the first book. And also it's kind of a maybe for me because I am so stacked with these other read-alongs. I want to make sure I give everything its due time. I don't want to be sitting there skimming through stuff. Definitely not my object of how I want to approach my reading, especially in 2025. So I want to kind of table this one, and if I get to it, I get to it. If not, no big whoop, I'll just keep it for another month. But this is part of the Fireside Discord that is run by Joanna from Joanna Reads, Josh from Red Fury Books, and Matt from Matt on Books. They are doing a read-along of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. Now, I've read a few, about 100 and something pages of the first book, Dragonbone Chair, which they're reading in January. I'm definitely not going to finish this one in time for February, so I'm going to carry it over. If I'm able to start the second book, Stone of Farewell, I'll consider myself lucky. If I'm able to finish it, it would be nothing short of a miracle, but that's the continuation book that they're reading in February. I'm going to try to jump on. Maybe I can at least join in the preliminary discussions for the first couple chapters. Who knows? We'll see how it all works out, but that is my 6. That is a lot of books. That is a lot of pages. That is a lot of characters. But you know what? Sometimes it's fun to challenge yourself and see what you can accomplish. I always feel like if you keep it fun, there's nothing wrong with a good challenge, right? Kind of pushes you to think about your day differently. I've been structuring my day differently so that I could get more reading time in, and I find that my work has not suffered. And in fact, I find sometimes it's a time refunder because the time you spend is so much more intentional that you get more out of the time that you're spending doing any of these activities, whether it's working or reading. And working is always getting in the way of our reading time. And reading is always getting in the way of our working time. It's always a struggle. But that is it from me. Let me know what you got on deck for February. Are you guys reading anything on this list? Are you reading anything off of this list? Anything you think on this list that I should move higher or lower on my priority list for February? I'd love to know from you because the dialogue is the most fun part about this channel. It is the thing that makes Booktube, worth it for me. I feel like getting to meet so many of you from all over the world and us getting to trade book recommendations together, that is the fun of this whole thing. So I really appreciate you all being here. And I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Please like and subscribe. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. I hope you have a wonderful rest of January and upcoming month in February, and you read some great books and that we read some together. Take care.